The car's mechanics secretly hate the hidden truth behind the wrench. It always starts the same way. You walk into the dealership, floors shining like glass, salespeople smiling like old friends, and a brand new car sitting under bright lights, practically begging you to drive it home. The touchscreen glows, the leather smells rich, the brochure promises smooth rides, fuel efficiency, and cutting-edge technology. It all feels safe, exciting, like the future, but what they don't show you, what no glossy ad will ever admit, is what happens after the sale, after the warranty runs out, after the check engine light comes on, again, after your dream car becomes a recurring nightmare that shows up on the back of a tow truck more often than it shows up in your driveway. Because behind the doors of every mechanic's garage, there are stories, patterns, warning. Mechanics, the people who work with these machines every single day, know which brands are built to last and which ones are built to fail fast and bleed you dry. They've seen the same makes roll in with identical issues. Transmission failures just after 60,000 miles, turbochargers that seize up without warning, touchscreens that black out in the middle of a highway drive. Oil leaks so consistent, they might as well be a feature. They don't judge a car by the brand badge or a YouTube review. They judge it by what they see on the lift. How easy it is to work on, how often it needs work, how expensive it is to fix, and how fast a great deal turns into a slow-motion financial disaster for the unsuspecting owner. Some mechanics will quietly warn their family and friends, "Don't get a Jeep, trust me, I work on them every day." Others see customers in tears, facing a $3,000 repair bill just months after purchase, and sometimes the scariest part isn't the cost, it's the safety. Faulty sensors that shut down cruise control at 70 mph, power steering failures in rush hour traffic, brake systems that lock up without warning. These aren't rumors. These are real problems happening in real cars to real people who thought they were buying something dependable. So why don't you hear about it more often? Because the car industry is a business built on image, and image is easy to sell. It's easy to fall for a slick marketing campaign, a 5-star review on a brand's website, or a test drive that feels great for 15 minutes. But what matters most is what happens in year 2, 3, 4, when that car becomes your daily reality. In this video, we're exposing the 15 car brands that mechanics secretly warn people to avoid in 2025. Some used to be legendary but lost their edge, others have always relied more on flash than function, and a few might surprise you because their reputation says one thing, but the repair records say something completely different. We'll break down exactly what goes wrong, when it happened, how much it costs, and why even mechanics themselves wouldn't buy these cars with their own money. If you're even thinking about buying a car this year, especially a used one, you need this information before you sign the dotted line. Because it's not just about avoiding a bad car, it's about protecting your money, your time, and your peace of mind. So buckle up, because this isn't your typical list of worst cars. This is the uncensored, under-the-hood truth from the people who fix your biggest regrets. Let's dive in. 15. Mitsubishi. Budget brand. Endless problems. On paper, Mitsubishi seems like the ultimate underdog win. Affordable price, a decent fuel economy, that rugged Lancer DNA from the early 2000s still clings to its reputation like the scent of nostalgia. And if you're shopping used, you'll find Mitsubishis on every corner of the internet for cheap. Dirt cheap. But ask any experienced mechanic and they'll tell you the same thing with a grim shake of the head. You get what you pay for, and then some. Because Mitsubishi isn't just a budget brand, it's a brand where the budget shows in all the wrong places. Let's start with build quality. Pop the hood on a modern Mitsubishi Outlander or Eclipse Cross, and you'll find plastic connectors where other automakers use metal. Paper-thin insulation, fragile clip, electrical systems that look on and act like they were designed 15 years ago. Wires are prone to fraying, gaskets start to leak by 60,000 miles, materials degrade faster than you can say lemon law. Mechanics report the same complaints again and again, CVT transmissions that start slipping or shuddering as early as 70,000 miles, a known weak spot that Mitsubishi has quietly ignored for years. Suspension components that wear out prematurely, leading to a noisy, unstable ride even under normal driving conditions. Timing belt failures that can result in catastrophic engine damage, if not replaced early, far earlier than the manual suggests. And that's just the hardware. Electronics are another minefield. Infotainment systems that freeze, reverse cameras that glitch out, Bluetooth modules that randomly disconnect. You might think that's just annoying, not dangerous, until your lane departure warning stops working or your cruise control refuses to engage during highway driving. And don't count on customer service to bail you out. Owners consistently report poor dealership support, delays in parts availability, and warranty battles that drag on for months. One owner posted about their Outlander's transmission failing at just over 65,000 miles, conveniently right after the powertrain warranty expired. The dealer's response, "It's wear and tear, nothing we can do." But the worst part? Mitsubishi's decline didn't happen overnight. Once upon a time, they were legitimately respected. The Lancer Evolution was a performance icon. The Montero could actually go off-road. But over the years, Mitsubishi slowly abandoned quality for quantity, cutting corners, shrinking their R&D, and slapping the same outdated tech into new-looking shells. Now they're a shadow of what they once were, propped up by cheap financing, fleet sales, and the hope that uninformed buyers won't look too closely under the hood. But mechanics do. That they see the wiring nightmares, the plastic timing chain guides, the engine mounts that split like paper, and the brakes that wear unevenly before 40,000 miles. They see the red flags and they quietly steer their friends away. Because while a used Mitsubishi might save you a few grand up front, it could cost you twice that in headaches down the road. So if you're looking at a Mitsubishi in 2025 thinking, it's not that bad, just remember, there's a reason these cars depreciate faster than their tires wear out. It's not just a cheap car, it's a cheaply made car, and no mechanic wants to be the one breaking that news to you after you've already bought it. At first glance, the Mini is irresistible. It's compact, stylish, and oozes personality. The kind of car you see parked at a trendy coffee shop or zipping through narrow urban streets like a toy in real life. Celebrities drive them, commercials make them look like go-karts for grown-ups, and the British flag on the roof? Iconic. But ask a mechanic what they think of Minis, and their smile will vanish. They're fun until something breaks, which happens fast, says Jake, a European car specialist who's worked on more Minis than he'd like to admit. Then he adds, it's never just one thing, it's everything all at once. Let's talk about what's under that adorable hood. Mini is owned by BMW, which you'd think would be a good thing. Premium engineering, right? Not exactly. Because while BMW packed Minis with high-end parts and tight packaging, they also introduced a nightmare of over-engineering that mechanics dread. The most notorious offender, the Prince engine, used in many Mini Cooper models between 2007 and 2015. It's infamous for timing chain tensioners that fail prematurely, leading to catastrophic engine failure if not caught in time, oil leaks from the valve cover, oil filter housing, and even the turbocharger return line, carbon buildup in the intake valves due to direct injection, which chokes performance and causes rough idling and misfires. These problems aren't rare, they're expected. In fact, some shops have started calling the Mini Cooper the 50,000-mile car, because that's when the check engine light becomes a permanent dashboard accessory. But wait, there's more. Minis are also known for cooling system failures, including thermostats, water pumps, and radiator fans that fail far too early. And when they go, they often take other components with them due to the tight engine bay, turning a $300 fix into a $1,500 repair. That tight engine bay, it's a mechanic's worst enemy. Everything is crammed in. Replacing a basic part like a water pump or thermostat, that often requires removing half the front end, labor costs skyrocket, and what should be a 2-hour job turns into a weekend ordeal. Want to change a battery? Get ready to remove a dozen panels and special brackets. Even worse, the problems extend inside the cabin. The fun, retro design hides a sea of fragile electronics and glitch-prone modules. Window switches fail. Central locking systems get buggy. Dashboard lights flicker for no reason, and infotainment systems, especially in older models, often give out completely, forcing owners to replace entire units that cost thousands. And let's not forget the ride quality. What feels tight and sporty during a test drive can quickly become bone-rattling and exhausting on rough roads. Mini's stiff suspension, paired with run-flat tires, transmits every bump, crack, and pothole straight to your spine. It's go-kart fun at first, until it starts to feel like punishment. Mechanics don't just dislike Minis, they dread them. They dread the endless phone calls from angry owners, the headaches from diagnosing mystery warning lights, the impossibly tight engine bays, and the expensive fixes for problems that shouldn't happen in the first place. But worst of all, they hate seeing good people fooled by the charm. Because Minis have mastered the art of seduction. They look amazing in showrooms, they feel nimble, they turn heads, and for a while it's fun, but behind that playful grin is a car that's not built for the long haul. They're high maintenance, fragile, and expensive to repair. Mechanics know it, resale values reflect it, and owners, they find out the hard way when the cute car they fell in love with becomes a bottomless money pit. So yes, Minis may be stylish. But as every seasoned mechanic knows, style can't save you when the engine fails, the electronics glitch out, and your bank account starts crying. 13. Fiat, European flair. American nightmares. Fiat had a dream of bringing sleek, stylish European cars to American roads. Zippy little hatchbacks, charming Italian design, great gas mileage, the kind of car that made you feel like you were cruising through the streets of Rome, it's even if you were just stuck in traffic in Cleveland. But dreams don't always survive reality. And Fiat's American comeback, it quickly turned into a nightmare. Let's rewind for a second. In 2011, after decades of absence, Fiat made a dramatic return to the US market by acquiring Chrysler. They rolled out the Fiat 500, a small, retro-inspired city car that looked like a tiny revolution on wheels. It was cute, quirky, and had an unmistakable European flair. Car reviewers praised its aesthetics. Commercials played up its Italian roots, and for a brief moment it felt like Fiat had nailed the formula. But mechanics? They saw the warning signs immediately. "You don't fix a Fiat, you babysit it," says Mike, a technician at a Dodge Chrysler dealership. And when they come in, it's never for just one thing, it's a chain reaction of problems. Let's break down the chaos. The Fiat 500, especially models between 2012 and 2016, quickly earned a reputation as one of the most unreliable cars sold in America. From its quirky design came equally quirky failure. Manual transmissions that grind and pop out of gear, automatic gearboxes with unpredictable behavior, lurching, slipping, or just refusing to shift, powertrain control modules that crash and reboot randomly, sometimes mid-drive, electrical gremlins that turn on warning lights for no reason, or worse, don't turn them on at all when there's a real problem. The Fiat 500L, a larger, supposedly more family-friendly version, was even worse. It was plagued by poor visibility, awkward ergonomics, and a dual-clutch automatic transmission so jerky and unreliable that some owners described it as undrivable. Its infotainment system, slow, unresponsive, and crash-prone. Its doors, known to misalign and rattle. Its turbo engine, prone to oil leaks and early wear. Then there's the parts situation. Fiat's footprint in the US is tiny, and so is their parts inventory. That means when something breaks, well, and it will, you're often stuck waiting weeks for replacements to ship from overseas. For a daily driver, that's unacceptable. And let's not forget the dealer network. Many Chrysler, Jeep, Dodge dealers were suddenly expected to service Fiats with no proper training, tools, or parts. Mechanics were frustrated, customers were furious. It was a recipe for resentment on both sides of the counter. But why does this bother mechanics so much? Because under that charming European sheet metal lies a car built to European standards, not American roads. The potholes, the long-distance commutes, the harsh winters, Fiat didn't adapt their cars to this environment. Suspension components wear out fast, interior trim starts to rattle, climate control systems struggle in extreme weather. It's not just poor reliabilities, it's poor fit for purpose. That's why many shops call the Fiat 500 the car that breaks before it's paid off. It's not a joke, it's a pattern. And the resale value? Devastating. According to Kelley Blue Book, some Fiat models lose over 60% of their value in the first 3 years. That's not depreciation, that's financial freefall. For mechanics, the frustration runs deep. These cars take too long to diagnose, parts are hard to find, and customers are always upset. And because they didn't buy a Fiat to deal with all this, they bought it because it looked fun, because it felt different, because it reminded them of Italy. But what they got was a car with unreliable wiring, fragile transmissions, and support systems that collapsed as quickly as Fiat's US market share. And Fiat, they didn't fix the problems, they just disappeared. In 2020, Fiat pulled almost all of its models from the US, quietly retreating from a market they never truly understood. Mechanics weren't surprised, they were relieved, because to the technicians who turned the wrenches, Fiat wasn't a charming foreign visitor, it was a daily disaster on 4 wheels. So yes, Fiat cars may look like they just rolled out of an Italian fashion catalog, but under the surface, they're a masterclass in how not to build a car for the American road, or the American driver. Chart 12. Lincoln. Luxury name, Ford problems. Lincoln. The name evokes prestige, elegance, presidential class. It's the badge that once carried presidents and celebrities, the gold standard of American luxury. You hear Lincoln, and you picture long gliding sedans with opera windows, chrome trim, and plush interiors wrapped in silence. But here's the uncomfortable truth behind the polished badge. Underneath that luxury label, you're basically driving a Ford in a tuxedo. And not even a good tuxedo. More like a rental that doesn't quite fit. Ask any mechanic who's worked on Lincolns for the past 2 decades, and they'll tell you, Lincoln is what happens when you slap a luxury badge on a problem. Let's pull back the curtain. Take the Lincoln MKZ, a sleek, upscale-looking sedan. Glossy paint, leather seats, ambient lighting, everything you'd expect from a luxury ride. But pop the hood, and surprise, it's practically identical to a Ford Fusion underneath. Same engine, same transmission, same electronic gremlins, just a higher price tag and more things to break. Mechanics have a name for this, badge engineering, and Lincoln's been guilty of it for years. But it's not just the DNA they share with Ford, it's the same problems, only more expensive to fix. Let's break it down. Lincoln's recent models, especially the MK series, MKZ, MKC, MKT, and MKX, are plagued by transmission issues that appear as early as 60,000 miles, jerky shifts, slipping gears, delayed engagement, touchscreen tech that freezes or fails thanks to the notorious Ford Sync infotainment system, power seat modules and memory systems that stop working for no reason and cost hundreds to replace, electronic gremlins galore, sensors that glitch, power mirrors that get stuck, and lift gates that work when they want to. But here's where it gets worse. When a Lincoln breaks, the repair bill doesn't match the reliability. You're paying luxury car prices for Ford-level quality. I've seen customers drop $2,000 on an MKX suspension issue, says Jordan, an independent mechanic in Michigan, and then come back a month later because the sync system crashed. It's never just one thing. Then there's the air suspension on models like the MKT and Navigator, designed to float like a cloud when new, but after a few winters those air bladders and ride sensors begin to fail, and when they do, replacing them can run upwards of $1,500 to $3,000 for a system that never should have made it out of testing in the first place. Mechanics also point to the cooling system failures in models like the 3.5L EcoBoost-powered MKZ and Continental. These engines have been known to overheat due to water pump failures buried deep inside the engine block. The repair? Engine out surgery, costing $2,000 or more, sometimes just to fix a leaky pump. And don't be fooled by the new names. Yes, Lincoln ditched its confusing MK naming system for more elegant-sounding names like Corsair, Nautilus, and Aviator, but the mechanical problems? Still the same. Take the new Lincoln Aviator, a full-size SUV marketed as a refined, tech-laden powerhouse, and sounds great, until you realize that under the sheet metal is a bloated Ford Explorer chassis with a turbocharged engine that's pushing components to their limits. Complain about turbo cooling issues, electrical faults that cause random shutdowns of driver assistance systems, battery drain problems linked to poorly calibrated software, and an interior loaded with complex electronics that malfunction if you so much as breathe on them the wrong way. You get the complexity of a German luxury car with the build quality of a fleet rental, and while Lincoln tries to position itself as a quiet, high-end alternative to BMW or Lexus, mechanics see through the disguise. Instantly, they know these cars are cobbled together using shared parts with lower-end Fords just dressed up in leather and LED lights. And when those parts fail, you can't just use the Ford ones. Lincoln parts are branded, marked up, and harder to find. Ford problems, Lincoln price tag, says Melissa, a former service writer at a Lincoln dealership, and customers, they're always shocked when a $50,000 SUV has the same issues as their neighbor's Ford Edge. And that's the core problem. Lincoln wants to compete with the big dogs, Mercedes, Lexus, BMW, but it's stuck borrowing bones from Ford. And customers, they're starting to notice. Lincoln's market share has been slipping, its sedan lineup is gone, its dealer network is shrinking, and most importantly, mechanics don't recommend them. Because once you've worked on a few dozen Lincolns and seen the same issues over and over, you start to realize this isn't a luxury brand, it's a marketing illusion. It may have the grille of a Bentley, but under the hood, it's still very much a Ford with aspirations and a whole lot of issues. Once upon a time, Nissan was bulletproof. In the 90s and early 2000s, owning a Nissan was like having a cheat code for affordable, long-lasting reliability. The Altima, Maxima, Sentra, they were staples of dependable transportation. And the Nissan Frontier, one of the last trucks you could beat into the ground and it would still start up the next day. But somewhere along the way, Nissan fell hard. And now, mechanics see them not as the kings of durability, but as repeat visitors on the shop floor. So, what happened? Let's start with the CVT transmission disaster, the Achilles heel that single-handedly shattered Nissan's reputation. Nissan was one of the first major automakers to go all in on continuously variable transmissions, CVTs, a type of gearbox that promised smoother driving and better fuel economy. In theory, it was a smart move. In reality, it turned into one of the most expensive blunders in modern auto history. The problem? Nissan's CVTs, especially in models like the Altima, Rogue, Sentra, and Versa, are notoriously fragile. They're prone to overheating under even mild load, delayed acceleration and rubber band lag, grinding and whining noises after just 40,000 miles, and worst of all, total failure before 100,000 miles. Mechanics have a nickname for these cars, time bombs with taillights, because once the CVT goes, it's game over. Repairs can cost upwards of $3,500, and replacements aren't guaranteed to last. And it's not just speculation. There have been class action lawsuits, customer complaints in the thousands, and mechanics across the country advising their clients to avoid Nissan CVTs at all costs. Even Nissan's luxury arm, Infiniti hasn't been spared. Models like the QX60 use the same Jatco CVTs, and they suffer identical breakdowns. Imagine spending $50,000 on a luxury SUV, only to have it drive like a dying blender after 70 miles, but transmission issues are just the start. Over the last 15 years, Nissan has become a shell of its former self, with build quality, engineering, and long-term durability all taking a back seat to cost-cutting. Mechanics have reported cheap interior plastics that crack, fade, and squeak, exhaust manifold failures in the Altima and Rogue causing power loss and emissions issues, persistent oil leaks from valve covers and gaskets, some returning even after multiple repairs, weak suspensions and premature strut wear timing chain failures in the VQ Series V6 engines, once considered bulletproof. Even once beloved models like the Maxima and 370Z have suffered from declining quality. And it's not just aging models either. Newer vehicles like the Rogue and Kicks have had widespread complaints about electrical issues, fuel pump failures, and random shutdowns. One mechanic from Atlanta put it bluntly, Nissan used to build cars that lasted 200,000 miles without breaking a sweat. Now, you're lucky to make it to 100,000 without a $4,000 repair. 2 words, Carlos Ghosn. When the former CEO took over, he slashed costs aggressively, prioritizing sales volume over quality. In the short term, it worked. Nissan flooded the market with affordable cars. But long term, it gutted the brand's engineering integrity, and mechanics have had to pick up the pieces ever since. Even the Nissan Titan, once a decent, rugged truck, became an afterthought, plagued with outdated tech and declining reliability. And models like the Pathfinder, they went from sturdy truck-based SUVs to bloated crossovers with failing CVTs and water leaks. Customers started catching on. Nissan's resale values plummeted, its market share shrank, its vehicles, once trusted family staples, became symbols of regret. Even dealerships began to change their tune. Some service departments reportedly stock CVT transmissions in bulk, anticipating the flood of failures. And while Nissan has promised improvements in recent years, especially with the redesigned Altima and Rogue, mechanics remain skeptical because until the company completely ditches its flawed CVTs and brings back the kind of rock-solid engineering it was once famous for, Nissan remains a gamble mechanics just don't recommend. The badge might say, innovation that excites, but behind the wheel, you're more likely to find a repair bill that terrifies. 10. Jeep, just empty every pocket. Mechanics often joke that Jeep stands for just empty every pocket, and they're not wrong. From leaky roofs on the Wrangler to failing powertrains on the Grand Cherokee, Jeep models are frequently in the shop. The Gladiator and Compass struggle with drivetrain issues, and none of the lineup scores well for long-term reliability. Even simple fixes like replacing brakes or wheel bearings cost 9. Jeep's safety ratings have also taken budget reliability. Let's be GMC. Mechanics know, if it's a daily driver you want, Jeep might be one of the worst options. From the outside, a GMC Sierra might look tougher, cleaner, more refined than a Silverado. The Acadia might seem more premium than a Chevy Traverse. And that Denali badge? It screams luxury. Chrome grills, stitched leather, wood trim, digital dials. But here's the truth mechanics will tell you behind closed doors. It's the same car, same parts, same problems, just more expensive to fix. And once you pop the hood or crawl underneath, that premium starts to look a lot more like plain old GM cost cutting. Let's break it down. Same platform, same problems, GMC vehicles are often mechanically identical to their Chevrolet siblings. The Sierra is a Silverado, and the Terrain is a slightly tweaked Equinox. The Yukon is a Tahoe in a fancier jacket, and that means every problem Chevy has, GMC inherits, especially when it comes to reliability. Mechanics see the same broken suspension bushings, the same failing lifters in the 5.3L and 6.2L V8 engines, and the same transmission issues, particularly with GM's 8-speed and 10-speed automatics. Let's talk about that transmission. It's been a recurring nightmare across GMC models, shuddering during acceleration, hard downshifts or jerky shifting, slipping between gears or delayed engagement, and eventually a complete transmission failure sometimes before 60,000 miles. Owners of the Sierra and Yukon have filed thousands of complaints. One mechanic in Phoenix even said, "I keep a transmission jack on standby every week for GMC trucks. If I get through a Friday without one coming in, it's a miracle." And even when fixed, these issues can reoccur. GM's software updates and flushes often act as band-aids instead of permanent solutions. The Denali trap. Now, here's where it really stings. GMC's Denali trim, their so-called luxury line, you're paying $10,000, $20,000 more for a badge, nicer leather, and maybe a few extra sensors, but underneath, it's still the same vehicle with the same weak spots, the same plastic coolant fittings that crack, the same cheap blend door actuators that fail and leave you without AC, the same cylinder deactivation system that wrecks lifters and cams over time. And because it's a Denali, parts cost more, labor costs more. And when things go wrong, the luxury badge does nothing to help you. Mechanics are brutally honest about this. People think they're buying a Cadillac in a truck's body. What they're really buying is a Chevy with lipstick. Over-engineered, underbuilt GMC has also developed a reputation for overcomplicating basic systems without making them more durable. Take the Acadia. Earlier models were plagued with timing chain stretch issues in the V6 engines, leaky water pumps, failing wheel bearings. Shoddy electronics, like door modules that stop working and backup cameras that glitch or go blank. All of this while being sold as a family-friendly SUV that's professional grade. That slogan makes a lot of mechanics laugh, because behind that slogan is a vehicle that comes into the shop more often than competitors like Toyota, Honda, or even Ford. Resale value drop-off. Another issue with GMC, depreciation. Despite the premium price tag, GMC vehicles lose value rapidly, especially once reliability concerns or out-of-warranty issues kick in. Used car buyers are catching on with this, and mechanics warn their customers, you're going to pay more for a GMC than a Chevy, and you're going to regret it just the same. Brand identity crisis. Here's the real problem with GMC. It doesn't know what it wants to be. It's marketed like a premium brand, but it's not engineered like one. It's priced higher, but doesn't deliver better reliability than the mainstream Chevy badge. And to most mechanics, it's just badge engineering with worse ROI for the owner. They see the patterns, they know the parts are the same, and when someone comes in with a Denali Yukon or Sierra, they already know what's about to break and how much it's going to cost. So when mechanics talk about brands they wouldn't touch with their own money, GMC usually comes up with a sigh and a shrug. If you're going to buy a Chevy, just buy a Chevy. Don't spend more to inherit the same headaches. Sharik, Chrysler. Still struggling to get it right. Chrysler's problems are nothing new. Mechanics have been warning customers about the brand for years. The Pacifica minivan, while popular, suffers from engine stalling, sliding, door failures, and expensive transmission issues. Even basic interior parts tend to wear out fast. Their sedans, like the 300, are heavy on looks but light on dependability. Mechanics say Chrysler cars often have rushed assembly, bad fit and finish, and recurring electrical faults. With few standout models and a shrinking lineup, the brand feels like it's on life support. 7. Cadillac. Luxury that doesn't last. Cadillac tries to compete with European luxury, but under the hood mechanics find serious flaws. The CT6 and XT5 are plagued by engine overheating, turbo failures, and poor transmission tuning. Many Caddy owners are shocked to learn how quickly parts fail and how expensive they are to replace. Adaptive suspension systems and touch-based controls fail often and cost thousands to repair. Mechanics often say newer Cadillacs aren't built for longevity and that high-performance engines wear down faster than advertised. 6. BMW. The ultimate repair machine. Few brands frustrate mechanics more than BMW. The cars are complicated, fragile, and costly to fix. Cooling systems fail early, gaskets leak oil, and turbochargers burn out quickly. The N63 engine, found in many 5 and 7 Series cars, is infamous for burning oil and frying batteries. And don't get mechanics started on the electronics. Everything from window regulators to backup cameras seem to have a short shelf life. Repairs often require specialized tools and training, which means higher labor costs. Mechanics agree, BMWs might drive great, but they'll drain your wallet. 5. Mercedes-Benz, over-engineered and overpriced. Like BMW, Mercedes has sacrificed long-term durability for tech overload and performance. Mechanics warn about failing air suspensions, weak water pumps, and ultra-sensitive electronics. The 7G-tronic transmission needs religious maintenance, and ignoring it means costly failures. The brand's use of water-based paint also means early rust is common, especially in northern states. Mechanics often have to order parts directly from Germany, adding to delays and repair costs. Mercedes looks great in the showroom, but once the warranty ends, the headache begins. 4. Jaguar. Beauty meets breakdown. Few brands worry mechanics more than Jaguar. From failed turbochargers to dead batteries and failing infotainment screens, these cars are constantly breaking down. Jaguar's Ingenium engines are known for serious design flaws, and their infotainment tech, even on recent models, is buggy and slow. Mechanics report frequent issues with seat motors, window regulators, and air suspension. Add in high parts costs and terrible dealer support, and it's clear why this brand barely survives in the US market. 3. Audi. When high-tech goes wrong. Audi seduces buyers with stunning design and performance, but once the honeymoon ends, mechanics say the real problems begin. Fuel pumps, electronic sensors, and timing chain guides all fail more often than they should. The Q5, A4, and A6 all have known issues with control modules and infotainment freezing. Mechanics also note that basic repairs often require entire subcomponents to be removed. Labor costs skyrocket, and warranties don't always cover the full extent of the problems. 2. Volkswagen. C'est complicated and costly. VW shares a lot of Audi's problems, including fragile electronics and quirky engineering. Mechanics often complain about hard-to-access components, requiring hours of labor for simple repairs. Their DSG dual-clutch transmission requires special maintenance, and failing mechatronic units are common. Add in the reputation damage from the diesel emissions scandal, and it's no wonder mechanics warn buyers to proceed with caution. Owners of aging Passats, Jettas, and Tiguans often spend thousands just to keep the car on the road. 1. Volvo. Safe but far from reliable. Volvo is known for safety, but that doesn't mean it's reliable. Mechanics see XC40s, XC60s, and S90s come in frequently for electrical issues, climate control failures, and infotainment system breakdowns. Brakes and adaptive cruise systems are especially problematic with recurring sensor and software faults. Volvo's maintenance costs are deceptively high. And while the ride is comfortable, mechanics say they're seeing too many major repairs within the first 5 years. Safety matters, but so does reliability. Volvo fails the second test. Outro: know before you buy. So there you have it, the 15 car brands that mechanics secretly warn their customers to avoid in 2025. If you value peace of mind, reliable transportation, and avoiding surprise repair bills, these are the brands you might want to think twice about. Click now to watch the follow-up video on the most reliable car brands money can buy in 2025. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share for more insider car advice.